Joining me now is LNP MP Garth Hamilton. Garth, good to have you on. Thank you so much for joining me. A lot to get through. But firstly, Sussan Ley's days are numbered.
Well, for all the reasons you outlined at the start of the program, I don't think things can continue. We have to draw things to a head. Our job is to hold this government to account. And as you've rightly pointed out, across this summer, we've needed to do that after the events at Bondi. But we should be talking about the largest blowout in my IFO history, $47.8 billion budget blowout under this treasurer. And that should be what the focus of our conversation right now. It's not, and we need to address that.
Right, so Andrew Hastie or Angus Taylor?
Well, look, there hasn't been a spill called, and I'm not faced with that question just yet. What I would say, these are both two men that I greatly respect and have worked very closely with both of them. Angus has been, I think, one of the greatest economic minds we have in the party, and Andrew stood right beside me during the net zero debate, all the way through leading the way. So these are two very good people. I hope they can work together, and I think a lot of people do too.
So you're not going to back one or the other?
Well, I'm not in that position yet, but when I am, I'll come and see you.
All right. Well, look, let's talk about this coalition split. Let me ask you this. Would a different leader potentially bring back the coalition?
Look, I think it's a very important conversation we need to have with the National Party. I think they probably have strayed across the line in terms of what's acceptable between two coalition partners. I certainly don't want to be having a conversation about the National Party leadership, and I don't think they should be having a conversation about ours. But that said, there's no policy disputes between the two parties right now. In fact, there is nothing separating us on policy going forward right now. We should be back together. We should be doing that very quickly. I don't think that is an issue of leadership necessarily. I think that is every member of the party agreeing that we're going to work together.
But just on the matter of leadership then, how do you think David Littleproud has handled this? Because a lot of blame has been laid at the feet of Sussan Ley, but is he too at fault here?
Look, I think the right approach would be to give an element of grace to both Sussan and David on this issue. This has been poorly handled by the government. Our reaction wasn't perfect either. I think the appropriate time now would be for a little bit of cool heads to take part. I think David knows that as well.
Should there have been a joint party room meeting? Would that have prevented this whole saga from the beginning?
Absolutely.
All right. Well,
question, straight answer. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a shambolic week. There's absolutely no doubt. And I do want to ask you about these hate speech laws. You have been furiously against it, but alas, they've passed. And here was Labor's Murray Watt on this morning. Have a listen.
It's not about cracking down on free speech. It's not about cracking down on people expressing a view. You know, we treasure free speech and democracy in this country, and we don't want to stop that.
Right, so he says that Labor treasures free speech, but now in the eyes of the law, what could be deemed hate speech or not is up to, a bureaucrat. But the Libs folded on this. I mean, that's the problem here, Garth. How can the party claim to be champions of free speech when they buckled?
Well, let's be very clear. The section that I was arguing against, the Liberal Party was arguing against, was 80.2 BF. This was the section on hate speech. This is what had ridiculous subjective measures that would have allowed anyone to claim hate speech was being used against them for almost any reason. That was removed. That was removed because of the fight that Australia and the Liberal Party and the National Party led, and that was taken out of the legislation. What was left was broken into two parts. One part on gun control, which I opposed, the other part dealing with hate groups and deporting hate preachers. Now, there is a question, and I think it's a relevant question for everybody, around the subjectivity of what makes a hate group. At the moment, the Director General of ASIO is the person who can define that. I think it would be much easier if we weren't going down the pathway of hate speech, quite frankly, and hate groups, and we just went back to prosecuting incitement to violence. If we can have that approach, I'm pretty sure then free speech follows.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's really concerning because now it's up to the eyes of the law to decide, what mum and dad sitting at home, if they post something on social media, well, they could be hauled in front of a court. I could be hauled in front of a court. We all could be, and that is the most concerning part of this. So, look, let's just see what happens. But I really worry that we're going down the path of the UK now where, people have been arrested over there for saying something that the government doesn't like. It's like blasphemy by stealth.